Professor Gabriel Krafft, 11th of March 1944. I'm creating a record of my involvement with the SS unit Die Wahrheit, as this may one day be called into question, and I probably won't be around to explain myself. In early September of 1939, I was in my office at the University of Leipzig with my assistant Franz. We were translating an ancient Sumerian scroll when a man walked in, unannounced. He said I must immediately tender my resignation, pack a suitcase, and depart for an overseas trip as an advisor to the SS battalion Die Wahrheit. That was the first time I met Oberfuhrer Wolfram von List. All I saw was a uniform and a perfect haircut. I had no idea what lay behind those icy blue eyes. I actually laughed. I had heard of his battalion, whose name perversely means the truth. They raided antiquities around the world, looking for evidence to support their belief in an Aryan master race. I waved him away, saying I had no desire to help Reichsfuhrer Himmler twist history to fit the Nazi narrative. Von List calmly drew his Luger and shot poor Franz in the head. His voice was perfectly calm. Do I have your attention now, Herr Professor? Gabriel Krafft, Audio Memoir Part 2. After shooting my assistant, von List had me dragged out of Leipzig University and thrown in an SS prison. There were a dozen other experts already there, recruited from museums and universities across the Reich to assist the SS unit Die Wahrheit. They were explorers, historians, archaeologists, and so on. Many looked beaten. All looked frightened. Hung on the wall was a map of the world with notes and drawings next to different locations, things like the Grail and Thor's hammer, Atlantis and Shangri-La. We wondered if this was a joke. But when von List arrived, he was dead serious. The Oberfuhrer ordered us to help his troops find the places on that map and retrieve those relics. It made no difference that they did not exist. We would deliver them, or else. The others agreed and filed out to do his bidding. They were not stupid men. I alone defied von List. I said, I know what your Nazis are doing. I've seen friends and neighbors taken away. I've heard what happens at your camps, and I would rather die than help you. Von List showed a flash of anger. And then he smiled. He was amused. I actually thought I had a say in my own fate. Krafft entry number 3. I was surprised von List did not shoot me. I had refused to serve him twice. Instead, he sent his men to my home. They broke down the door and took my spouse to an SS interrogation chamber. I had put my values and dignity ahead of my own life. So von List made someone else pay for my stubbornness. Should I refuse to help Die Wahrheit or drag my feet in any way, the love of my life would be slowly tortured to death. Of course I complied. How could I do otherwise? But I also made a silent promise to myself. I would learn of Die Wahrheit's secrets. If we found anything of real value, I would turn it against them. Somehow, I would destroy von List and his Nazi thugs from within. Gabriel Krafft, Audio Memoir Part 4. Once von List forced my cooperation, my first assignment for Die Wahrheit was to decipher a document seized at the infamous Hotel Royal in Paris. Well, infamous to someone like me, who spent a career studying groups that dabbled in, for want of a better term, the occult. I dislike that word. Practitioners of what some condemn as witchcraft are usually ordinary folk. They just approach the divine in a different way than their neighbors at the cathedral. The society occult, on the other hand, had no such problem with the word. Their wealth and power protected them from your average pitchfork mob, and they sought to use dark magic as a means of extending their influence. I knew at once the documents were pages from the Society's fabled Tome of Rituals. It was a so-called spell book, compiled over centuries. Only the inner circle had ever seen it. But something terrible happened back in the 20s. Some crisis that compelled the Society to take the book apart and hide the pages in sacred places around the world. Because I recognized the pages, I was rewarded with the task of tracking more down and reconstituting the book. As he often reminded me, von Liszt had my beloved Sasha under arrest. Succeeding at my task was my only chance to keep us both alive. Gabriel Krafft, Audio Memoir, Part 5. My servitude to die Wahrheit was almost over before it truly began. I was tasked with gathering the lost pages of the Tome of Rituals, but I had no idea where to start. All I had was a few pages already in von Liszt's possession. Von had notes scribbled in the margin, and just as von Liszt began threatening to execute my poor Sasha, I recognized that handwriting. One of the patrons of my university was an amateur demonologist. The hobbies of the idle rich. Anyhow, he must have once possessed the pages to have jotted down those notes. Von Liszt had him arrested and tortured. He revealed he had been a member of the society, one entrusted with hiding tome pages. He listed others who also possessed a few. With enough pages, I deduced the locations of various artifacts listed within them. For a time, I was von Liszt's most valuable helper. He rewarded me with a letter from Sasha. Proof of life, he called it. I tried not to weep as I read it. Von Liszt hated that. But things turned for the worse when none of the artifacts seemed to have any power. I had made a devil's bargain to keep my beloved alive. But my luck was running out. Krafft, entry number 6. I had found von Liszt the artifacts in the Tome of Rituals. They proved as useless as the rest of the relics die Wahrheit plundered. He looked at me with more disgust than usual, losing faith in me. The moment I was no longer useful would be the end of me, and my Sasha. Though we were never officially married, and we kept our union from prying eyes, Sasha was my spouse. I could not give up until we were reunited. But the search for a mystical Wunderwaffe to save the Reich was based on the delusions of a Nazi death cult. I was beginning to despair, and then the incident at Project N Station punched a hole into the dark ether, awakening the artifacts in the blink of an eye. My fear I was not producing results became abject terror that I had handed Wolfram von Liszt the ultimate weapon.